Hi everyone, welcome to Hunter Gatherer Cooking. I've been really lucky to be invited onto Tom and Harry's podcast. This is the full recording. It's an hour long. I hope you enjoy it. It's an insight into what I've been doing, what they're doing, and it's just an honest, at times quite funny chat. So let me know what you think.
Hello everyone and welcome to what I can't believe is the 5th episode of the Deercast podcast. You guys never thought we'd make it here, but we have. So screw all you, the doubters. Today we have got a really exciting guest with us. We have got Alex Russon from Hunter Gatherer Cooking with us. We had an awesome time with Alex up at the Stalking Show. I can't remember how many months ago it was. And immediately we're both like, he needs to come on the podcast. So without further ado, here we go. Welcome to the 5th episode.
Hello.
Hello, Alex.
I've got sensible all of a sudden.
You have. I was going to say your brief intro before this, you were just about to strip off and put on a pair of Harkula braces. And then here you are, all sensible.
Guilty.
So Alex, you're unusually for this podcast and this channel, you are not a deer stalker.
I am not. I know. It's a bit ironic, isn't it? The name of my channel.
Yes. Well, do you want to talk us through how that's all come about and how you have got involved in deer stalking?
How far back do you want me to go?
How far back do you need to go?
Well,
when were you born?
So it started 9 months before April of '86 with my mum and dad.
Maybe a
No,
little bit
so
than that.
so
Yeah,
my
like 20 years.
Yeah, my page, I don't know if I told you this or not, so I don't know whether you know any of this, but anyway, so my page started 3 years ago back in April, and I had a gas barbecue for my 30th. And I really enjoyed it, spent a load of money on it. It was supposed to, one of these ones with 5 years warranty. So I was really going to use it and get some proper use out of it. And I did anyway. And then I watched something or I read something that you could smoke food on a gas barbecue. And I was just like, what is this? Is this even possible? What voodoo witchery is this? And anyway, I did it and I really enjoyed it. So I started getting up at like 5-6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning. And it's just started just real basics of.
How long does it take to smoke something? Or do you just like smoking at really weird times in the morning?
Well, so, I mean, you can smoke it for as long as you want. But like if you're going to go low and slow, you can go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours. If you want to.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, to go from grilling meat to smoke is just an absolute game changer. So I made a load of mistakes, and so my first YouTube videos were as boring as a time-lapse video with the camera looking down on this horrible bit of meat with me with a knife just trimming it up, basically taking the fats off. Because smoke won't go through fat, basically. And so it started from there, and then that just progressed. And then one day, father-in-law bought what's called a water smoker off of Amazon, one of these cheap models. And he just got impatient, lit it, did the gardening, came back to it an hour later to see how it was all going. And lo and behold, it had choked and gone out, basically. So he gave up. He said, you have it.
What is a water smoker? Sorry.
So it looks like R2-D2, basically. So imagine R2-D2, if you took his lid off, from the bottom, it would be a fire bowl, a water bowl, a grill, the lid, basically.
Right. So the smoke is actually just like water evaporating.
Like a steam.
No, the water's there to act more as a heat shield.
Okay.
It does put moisture in and things like that, but it acts as the heat shield. Anyway, so I used that for a little while, but it was so bad that it was one of those where you're down on. There was no air to it whatsoever. It needed a load of holes drilled in the bowl. But I was literally, most days I was down on my knees, like huffing and puffing into this little door. I go and just literally getting the meat to temperature. Anyway, that then progressed onto a smoker that I bought. Like it's called an offset smoker. So that's one like it's like a drum with an offset chamber to it, and then the smoke goes through it and up. So I bought one of those off of Facebook, and bless the owner, they put it onto the trolley. They've mounted it backwards. It was in a terrible condition. So I saved this poor smoker, did it up, and then I got into offset smoking. And then
that's like cold smoking, or is that?
No, it's still hot.
Okay.
You could put a cold smoker in the chamber and do it that way, but yeah. So I got into that, and then I just wanted more and more. So I kind of ended up getting some different barbecues, and then eventually I never did Instagram. So I started on Facebook, and I think it got to about 10,000 likes on there. And then, someone said, "Oh, you should do Instagram because that's better," and all this sort of jazz. It's just different markets, isn't it? And then so I focused on Instagram, and I started putting pictures up, and that's where brands start getting involved. Oh, can we send you our salt, or can we send you a bottle of wine, and all that sort of thing. And like the one thing that I've always said is that I would never say or post something. I would never lie basically and say like, "Oh, it's good," when it's not. In fact, I've fallen out with a few people about that, but that's I don't ever want to be the guy that gets asked.
Tell us which ones.
No, absolutely not. I never want to be the guy that gets asked, "Yeah, but what do you really think?"
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah. I always want it to be, no, that is what I think.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then and so the idea of the Instagram. So I'm sorry, I am getting onto it. So the name came from really Instagram when I first set it up, and I don't know, where do you start when you're setting up an Instagram page where you haven't got a clue what you're doing anyway? I didn't even know what a hashtag was at this point. And I don't know, I just started playing around, and then obviously when you're setting up a page, you can search for what's available, can't you?
Yeah.
So hunter gatherer cooking came up, like bloody hell, it's available. So I took it.
But at this point, you weren't a hunter at all.
No. No.
It's a great name. It is a great name.
I pulled it out the sky. There was a little bit. There was a small thought process of when I chose the name. Okay, but what does this mean? And the idea was that I wasn't going to actually hunt, mostly because I didn't know how to, couldn't, and just I've never done it. But the idea was to hunt food online and find food producers and basically change it. So even now on the Instagram page, it's sort of saying finding sort of food, and the weapon of choice was going to be a credit card, because of course that's what you buy stuff online with. Then what happened is it was just before this, but then COVID came in, and of course all of our local butchers, everyone started to do online purchases, didn't they? And all of a sudden, the sheepskin insulation, not sheepskin, the wool insulation was coming out, and you could buy all these amazing meats, that was locally way up the country, but you could still get it. So it worked out really well. And so I was just hunting all this food without sort of killing anything myself. And the idea was not to ever try and get people out of supermarkets like in totality, because that's never going to happen. These people that push that, they're living a dream. It ain't going to happen. But the idea was actually, before the page, I even considered being a veggie or a vegan. Not many people believe that, but
I just end this podcast right there. So,
yeah.
Thanks very much. It's nice to have you.
I personally believe that if you're going to eat meat, you have to understand that it comes from animals, and I want those animals to have the best life possible and the swiftest ending possible, basically. And so that's what I'm trying to push now is not just eat loads of meat, it's eat good meat and understand where it comes from, and my passion is getting behind the people of those businesses, the farmers, the owners of the business and things like that. And then what I try and do is my story is telling their story in a fun way, and then I tie that in with the sort of the hobby and the passion of I just really enjoy cooking on fire. So I'm not a barbecuer, I'm not a hunter, I'm not a traveller because there's a sleeping page that goes with it. But I just sort of sit on the outside of these groups, and I'm trying to tie these people together. So I'm trying to tie the foodies in with now the hunting, but I'm trying to do it in a tasteful way to say, yeah, all right, that is a deer, and oh, it's lovely, isn't it beautiful, and all that, but it's food at the end of the day. And people, even now, you put a picture of a nice bit of red meat up on Instagram and it will go wild. You put a picture of a carcass up, not so much.
Yeah, it's funny, that separation, isn't it? People don't seem to
not enough people, they're not prepared to see that. And I think it's wrong. We have to know where it comes from. And again, my opinion is a bullet to the head for a deer is way better than hours of traveling to an abattoir. God only knows what happens at abattoir. I would go to one. If I could get into one, I would go. I think it'd be a horrific experience. But I would rather that. I'd rather a deer shot instantly than all that.
If you want to visit one, let me know. I've got contacts.
Sounds very ominous.
I would love to experience.
I was going to say that does sound ominous. We're not taking you there to kill you. We're taking you there.
And then I'm with a lot of pigs.
Yeah.
No, I would do it anyway. So I was doing my thing, and we were in lockdown, and Matt, who you obviously know well because he was higher up the list for this by the sounds of it.
Matt who?
We don't know that bloke.
Don't know anyone by the name of Matt.
For the benefit of the listener, it's Matt from the Grove Game Larder.
Let's give him a plug. He'll love that.
Give him a little plug.
He's dead to us. He's dead to us now, but we did used to know him.
So one of the estates that he manages, I was already messaging, and I didn't know much about them because what I was looking for was land to cook on. I used to go out quite early in the morning and basically just cook anywhere and then hope I didn't get caught and stuff. I prefer to have the landowner's permission now. So I was messaging this estate and arranged to go over to see them, and then Matt just coincidentally messaged me and said, oh, do you fancy a guided deer stalk? And I said, yeah, that'd be amazing. And then it then transpired he was the deer manager for this estate. And then so he took me out on that night and we did a kit video. We then did the stalk. He then brought the deer, so he skinned it. Then he brought the deer back a week later after it was hung, butchered it on site, which was really good. So we got sort of 3 or 4 extra videos of that. So we tried to show sort of everyone all the different cuts from a deer. And then after that, I was quite interested in how charcoal was made, and this estate, it's the Belmont estate. They make their own charcoal from the felled trees and things like that. So I then made another video, got up really early, started that process, came back after work, finished the process with them of how their charcoal was made, and then a few weeks later, I took the venison meat, or some of the venison, back to the estate. Got some of their charcoal and went up into their bluebell wood, lit a fire, and cooked some venison. And it was amazing because obviously I had this whole connection of knowing exactly where that food had come from. It basically it had never really left the estate, and then I was using charcoal from the estate. And then you guys will know this because I picked up a few things. The little mark on the floor that you see by a tree where the deer sort of puts its back to it, that was the first time I'd seen one of those. It was incredibly emotional to have that connection, and see that it was the first time, if I'm honest, it was the first time I'd ever heard a gun being fired. Obviously I was quite close at that point. First time I'd seen an animal being shot. And Matt was brilliant.
I've got so many questions. And the first one is because your channel up until that point, until you put on the videos, would never have seen that kind of thing. So like, how did your audience react to that kind of thing? Did you have like outrage from some people, or was everyone sort of morbidly curious? Or
so I was really nervous, and Matt was nervous as well. And I didn't put any of the pictures up I didn't put a dead deer up or anything like that. There was pictures of meat and then descriptions and things, and it was more of, this is what I've done, and if you're interested, you can go find it yourself. But I never did that. But if I'm brutally honest, like, so because I started with the barbecue world, they're really into their meat, obviously. So I've got a few veggies and a few pescatarians that follow, which I think fair play to them, because at least they're interested and they're getting involved in things. But the people, mostly guys, if I'm honest, they were loving it. Absolutely loving it. And so me and Matt have tried to do it in this tasteful, respectful way. So I think there's 24 hunting videos up there now, and I think we counted the other day, there's only 3 shots where you don't even see the deer being shot. It's obviously because I cut back to Matt, you see the gun being fired, but you don't see the deer drop. But out of all those videos, there's only 3 of those that actually involve the direct killing. I personally don't need to have a full-on hunting video. I don't think, anyway.
No.
But we've done the gralloching. I've shown all of that. I've got no issues with that whatsoever. But moving forward, what will happen is, and hopefully when I come down to see you guys, is I want to do the stalk, and then we do it, and then not necessarily use that exact deer, but and then cook some venison. So if we're going to go out and shoot something, and then so tie it in with the food. So the first part of the video is going to be about the stalking, the second part is going to be about the eating, and then that's where the two sort of go hand in hand, really. So that's really only come into, when you make a connection of what you're doing and why you're doing it. That's kind of what I'm doing and why I'm doing that. Only came sort of this year. But yeah, up until then, the hunting wasn't a thing. And then I had a conversation with a well-known friend of yours at Harkila, and she rang me and she said, yeah, like what you're doing, but you're not exactly looking the part. And all of a sudden,
plastic surgery, and that was it.
Exactly.
And this was the result.
And and then all of a sudden I'm getting invited up to see you guys at the stalking show, and it just went from there, really.
And so again, to get to like wind back a step, so the first time you went out stalking with Matt, because you hadn't met him before this point.
Yeah. So first of all, stalking wasn't what I thought it was. I thought we were doing something completely different that night.
were you dressed slightly differently?
Yeah, I had completely the wrong attire and attachments.
Yeah.
Edit that out.
So I mean, quite a lot of trust. Firstly, to just meet a stranger in the woods with a gun.
So afterwards, so I didn't think about that at all. And then I had another person invite me out for a stalk, and it was Matt that said, "Oh, do you know him?" I went, "No," and he said, "So you're going to go out with someone who you don't know, with a loaded weapon to somewhere you don't know?" I'm like, maybe not actually.
Maybe not, but Matt, you're okay.
Yeah, there was one point where I went out with Matt at night, and he couldn't find the kill, and he said, "Wait here," and when you're just, nothing's gonna happen, but I'm stood in this field in the pitch black, thinking I could be dead at any second and I won't even know about it, and no one's ever going to find me.
Yeah, a bit disconcerting.
Yeah, it was.
So what was your how did you find it? Because obviously was that your first ever experience of actually going hunting anything?
If I'm brutally honest, Matt clocked quite quickly that there was a change in emotion from me. And he said, "You all right?" And I said to him, like, I mean, I was all right, but I said to him,
was this after the shot, or was this just?
So this is after the shot, and he said, "You okay?" Because he must have done quite a few guided deer stalks. So he must see reactions change, in people. I mean, it was incredible, because like the adrenaline, like I know you guys do it all the time, but for a new person, the adrenaline was insane. At any second you might see that deer, might you? and then not having a clue what the hell was going on. And he said, you're all right. And I said, can I be honest? And he said, yeah. I said, quite emotional. Am I
not upset or?
Yeah, my first emotion was genuinely, I questioned, am I going to eat meat again? We hadn't even approached the deer at this point, but for about 60 seconds, I considered questioning everything. And weirdly, I thought of my dog at the time, and I was just like, that's about the size of my dog. So I was a little bit sad, and then it wore off basically. And I kind of understood it, but it was a brilliant video, and he didn't mean to do it. But when we approached the deer, and it wasn't a setup, the deer was obviously on the floor dead, eyeball test. He did a bit of talking, and then I didn't realize until I was editing at the time, the deer had a dandelion in its mouth like this, literally across sideways. It was like a sort of a Spanish guy with a rose, and it was in there, and Matt sort of pulled it out of his jaw, and he said, oh, that was his last meal, having this dandelion, the flower. And he didn't think, he just put it back into his mouth and sort of put his hand on its head. It was incredibly respectful, like what he did. And then I was just like, yeah, this is a guy that doesn't, I've got no interest in going out with someone who just enjoys blowing animals away. Like that's not what I'm about. And so Matt has got an incredible amount of respect for the animals, what he does, all the organizations and the people behind it. And I think that that's really, really important. And I think that where the success has been, like with the people that I've met, is that I'm trying to send a good message about stalking and shooting and things like that.
Yeah. You've got a whole different sort of not market, but you've got an entirely different audience to us. In terms of, you've got like sort of 20,000 people on Instagram who I'm sure most of them aren't hunters.
No, so you've like so small, but
to sort of be a spokesperson for it in a way.
Yeah, and that's it. And I've quite enjoyed telling my take on it, my story about it, and sort of just learning about it really. I mean, I know so little about any of it, but it's interesting. It's everything that I do, because I'm not paid or anything. It's all a hobby. It's the same for you guys. It's just, I'm just interested and fascinated by it. So.
And is there anything you've learned about the industry that has shocked you, or has everything been a kind of pleasant surprise? Or
I'll tell you the one thing that I just didn't even know it existed was when we were up at the stalking show. I've completely forgotten the name of it. What's the group of people that dress in the orange with the dogs that go out?
DTR.
UK DTR.
Yeah, that was just I just had no idea that society, that service, whatever you want to call it, I just had no idea that existed.
So we should explain for the benefit of the listeners, in case there's anyone who's not a deer stalker listening to it. So UK DTR is a voluntary organisation. It stands for UK Deer Track and Recovery Service. And basically, if hypothetically, say Harry or I were out deer stalking, you shoot a deer, it doesn't do what you're expecting it to do, and say runs into cover, and you think, well, I'm not quite sure where it's gone, I can't find it. You can ring these guys, and they will turn up normally with a blood scent hound that they've trained themselves, and they'll find it for you if needs be. And I hate to say this, they'll dispatch it for you as well. And there is absolutely no fee payable, and they'll then disappear at the end of it. And they'll come out any time of day or night, any day of the week.
They're amazing.
They really are.
Experience with them?
So yeah, so I've had to use them once, and touch wood, hopefully that's the only time I ever do. So I was out roebuck stalking last summer with a friend, and shot a roebuck. It was me behind the trigger, so entirely my fault. And roebuck reacted perfectly to the shot, and the friend that I was with was like, great, well done, shook my hand. And the roebuck had kind of darted off a bit to the left, just behind a hedgerow. And basically we walked over to where we thought it was going to be, and it was just not there. And we both immediately were like, oh, something's not quite right here. And the kind of golden rule in those sort of scenarios is if is not to look too much and not to disturb the scene too much, because you start to destroy whatever trail might be there for a dog. So called UK DTR, they turned up with dogs, and basically followed the trail from there, basically. And they left at 2:00 in the morning on a sort of July evening or whatever, and literally it was, thanks very much guys, see you later. There was no sort of credit card machine, there was, oh no, please would you mind making a donation, absolutely nothing. It was just out of the goodness of their hearts, which I think is something pretty unique to our industry.
And so when you said, like, you know, have I ever been shocked, that's the biggest shock I've had, but in a positive way.
Yeah,
you should get
there are people out there
get them on here.
Yeah.
They need a little bit more awareness, you know, and thanks for what they do and things like that, because they're an incredible team, absolutely incredible.
That's something I've never actually even thought about in terms of getting them on the podcast.
No.
But it would be really.
I bet they've got some insanely interesting stories.
Yeah.
We were saying that sort of like every single deer stalker, every time they sort of walk past one of them, there's a very sort of like sheepish expression, because anytime any of them have to be called out, it's invariably because you've cocked something up in a big way.
Yeah.
And it's like the last resort is calling the DTR boys in.
But it's such an important thing for us to have as an industry, because it shows that you're not just out there causing potentially pain and misery to an animal and then going, oh, sod it, never mind, we'll just go home and sit on the sofa. There's actually a kind of a backup and emergency plan.
They were described as a bit of an insurance policy.
Yeah.
They're kind of like a sort of like the fire service or the ambulance or something. They're like a sort of last resort. But
and
I
actually,
think it
one of the things I get asked a lot is if I'm going to do the shooting one day, and I probably will. I'll probably get to that point. I've got no interest in it at the moment. I genuinely, I love following Matt about. If I come down to see you guys, I'll still do the same. I get a lot of pleasure from that. But my fear is, what if I don't kill it? What if I really injure it? That goes against everything that I believe. So at the moment, I don't back my shot. I've had an air rifle and stuff, so should be all right.
That's all down to the kind of tuition, because I mean, friends who've started shooting or friends I've taken out deer stalking, it's all about you as the kind of instructor, for want of a better word, making sure that they're comfortable and confident with shooting a rifle at a target and hitting it every single time, and then making sure that when you do give them the rifle and say take that shot, that you're doing it within kind of sensible circumstances. So you'd never say to someone, oh, there's a deer, it's 600 meters away, go on, have a crack at it. You'd make sure it was sort of 100 meters or less, like clean, easy, broadside shot on a big deer, and there wouldn't,
and no pressure as well. I think that's a lot of mistakes people make, especially people who are going to do their first stalk and they're kind of, they're paying for it or whatever. There's a lot of pressure on that environment, to go out and get something. Whereas the best way to do it is just sort of have absolutely no pressure. Don't, if you don't feel right, pull the trigger at the end of the day.
When I was talking to Pulsar about some of their kit and things, they were sort of saying like, well, why are you even interested in this if, because it's nothing to do with me. And I sort of said to them, which they were a bit surprised with, I said, because I need Matt to hit that target every single time, and your technology will allow him to do that. And so, it just sort of fits together basically. Because then you can combine, sort of traditional skills and things with modern day technology.
There was something else. I can't remember what it was, because the three of us walked around the stalking show together at one point, didn't we? And Harry and I got very nerdy with something at a stand, and I can't remember what it was. Was it
you were talking about ammo?
It was the
It
The
was
243
Yeah, it was-
non-toxic.
Like when you lot start talking, like you get into your hunting chat. I mean, I haven't got a clue what you lot are talking about. I'm just like, yeah. Let's kill a deer. Let's kill something.
You can get incredibly nerdy.
But like,
Kind of the
but
point
like
of this podcast.
I can follow it with all your numbers and stuff, and I don't have a clue what any of that means. But I don't need to.
No.
I'll tell you what I found really interesting was me and Matt did a reloading video, and that was just unbelievable. To see it done at home. That was pretty.
I think if you said to the general public, most people, you can load your own bullets in your bedroom if you want to and go shoot them.
Yeah.
Don't be absolutely ridiculous. That's like terrorism.
But again, anyone could do it. But my God, there is an art to it, isn't there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, there is. Certainly.
It's not just a case of pour a bit of that in here and pour, do this, do that. It's like, no, you need to seriously measure this.
Yeah.
Again, I had no idea that was a thing, but that was part of that was the extension to Field to Fork, because it was actually the prequel to Field to Fork. It's okay, well, what happened before we got to the field? Well, he made his own ammo. How did he do that? Okay, well, he did it like this. And then really the only thing that I want to do afterwards, after the fork part, is I want to go to a restaurant that Matt supplies to, and just see, have some really, really nice fine dining sort of cuisine with some of the venison and things like that. But at the moment we're just focused on enjoying sort of going out. We have a right laugh with it. Just getting content really. But luckily I've not, touched wood, I've not had any kind of like the people that I've met in the shoot. Well, it's not the hunting, stalking community. What do we say?
Yeah, although that does sound a little bit strange, doesn't it?
The
That's
deer
what I mean.
stalking.
Deer stalk. I think deer is an important.
In the deer stalking community, there you go then, is that everyone is so genuinely welcoming.
Yeah.
So I went out with two guys that Matt knows, and for a non-deer stalking person, it was exceptionally. They weren't intimidating, but I was intimidated to go out with three guys who had probably done this for 20 plus years each. And I think when most people think about stalking, and they think probably big burly bloke, no emotions, probably doesn't talk and stuff. But the two guys that I went out with, we shook hands at the end of the day, and there was some real we'd bonded quite a bit, and they were genuinely so supportive, because they was like, well, who are you, what are you doing, what about the name and stuff. But when they kind of got it that I wasn't, I'm just trying to tell their story the best way possible, it's been really good. And I've not met any negative deer stalking people, if that makes sense.
I think in that respect, it is quite a unique industry. I mean, I can't imagine, say you did wake up in the morning and you decide, right, I want to go out and I want to become a professional footballer.
Yeah.
Or I want to go out and become a really good footballer. I can't imagine there are many forums out there where you can just post and say, can someone teach me how to play football? And can someone take me to their club and show me everything you know?
Yeah.
The deer stalking world is a bit like that. It is very friendly and welcoming. I don't know whether that's because we are so small and therefore always trying to bring others into the fold, or I don't know what it is.
I mean, a lot of people say that the deer stalking world is very sort of insular, don't they? I mean, you see a lot of. I mean, I've never experienced anything like that, though.
No.
Everyone I've ever dealt with in this.
I think it's purely perception of people in the unknown. Like I was, trying to look into it. Who are these people? What are they going to ask? I mean, I've given up, like, with the lingo and all that. Like I said, I haven't got a clue what you're talking about, but I know that I don't need to know. I'm just there to enjoy the whole thing.
Is there anything, as an outsider, and I don't mean that to sound rude,
no, I'm
but like,
very okay with
is
that.
there anything we as the community, as the deer stalking community, could be doing to make it more accessible to others, or make it more inviting to others to come into, or do you think that's just something we don't even need to go down that road? Or
well, you say that, but like, I mean, to answer it, no, but then that's not based on a lot. But things like the stalking show, that's open to the public. That was what, £12 a ticket. That's not exactly going to break the bank.
Yeah.
And so my take on that was that I knew that there was going to be food there, so I could tie the two together, which was great. Obviously, it tied in with other people that I knew. But then you look at something like the game fair, which is absolutely huge, isn't it? I mean, what more could the deer stalking community do than that? I mean, it's just massive, and I've got tickets for that. I cannot wait. I've never been, but from what I hear, it's pretty damn epic. And that should have quite a few walks of life. You know, not just the deer stalkers. There's going to be outdoor clothing, barbecue people, food people. Like, it's going to be everything, isn't it? Cars, the lot.
You got your outfit planned?
I don't know.
Are we going to see suspenders?
Touch wood. It should be warm, shouldn't it? So some kind of lederhosens.
Come in mankini.
Yeah. Let's see if Harkilla do a summer version.
I'll do a special one for you.
Yeah. It also it does tend to be the game fair. I've a little bit of a fashion show in some or more.
There's a lot of Fairfax and Favour.
It must be like the Gold Cup or something like that, where everyone sort of gets dressed up. I mean, even at the stalking show, there were some outfits there, weren't there?
There were some outfits, yeah.
And if I'm honest, I do enjoy that. Like, I do enjoy a little bit of
bit of tweed.
Well, I was going to say dressing up, but tweed would be better.
Yeah, it's always good fun.
Yeah. What I always really enjoy are the head-to-toe camo wearers.
Oh yeah,
they're like, I'm going to the deer stalking show. I'm loud and proud. All out deer stalking, so I'm going to wear.
Yeah. What I love is how accepted that really is. It's okay, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, come on in. You don't need to feel ashamed.
The only place, apart from out stalking, obviously, because I wear camo when I'm stalking now, and it's fantastic.
Do you?
Yeah, Sealander just brought a new range. Don't know if you've heard. Quick plug. Yeah. The new Avail suit. Very, very, very effective.
Nice.
Is it? Well, sort of, yeah.
Sort of.
Well, it works.
Sort of.
Yeah. It's really
quite
effective.
It's quite hard to test. But,
well, I know what you mean, because Purdy asked me, our friend at Harkila asked me the other day about, because they gave me some Harkila camo stuff, and she was like, do you think it works? And I was like, well, I don't know, because I wasn't wearing it, crept up on a deer and then went, to take all this off and see what happens. Like, so yeah, you don't know.
I think if humans' eyesight is something to go by, I think this works, because I've stood in like a wood and had sort of pictures taken of me, and it does break up.
It will work. I mean, if you stare long enough, you'd find it, wouldn't you? But
yeah, you would. Yeah. I think it's something.
If you go out in a high-vis jacket or, tracky bottoms or something, you're going to get seen. So you should have something that at least tries to blend in.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. But going back slightly to cooking and food and things, I think our listeners will be very interested to hear your thoughts on venison and, favourite cuts, best, favourite way of cooking it. I've never tried smoking, so I'd be very keen to sort of hear what your thoughts are on that.
Smoked venison. I'm just trying to think now.
I saw a video of you doing a very tasty looking bit of silverside. I don't think you smoked it.
I think with the venison, because it's obviously a very lean meat, isn't it? So to keep it moist, you need to be a little bit careful. But I mean, I love venison, absolutely love it. I had what did I have? Is it called backstrap?
Yeah.
I had some of that the other day, which I didn't realise. Well, I did. I may have had it before, but I didn't. I had it specifically, and it was just lovely, really, really, really nice. But a haunch of venison, something like that, is just amazing.
So if someone said to you, right, we're going to give you a piece of venison, your choice,
anything.
What would it be, and how would you cook it?
Oh my god, I do like a silver side or something like that. Or I'll tell you what I'd really like to do, and I'm really into this, is I love hanging meat up and cooking it that way, just straight over a fire. So what I'd really like to do is just hang a venison leg up, have it, just do that. That's I did it with a lamb leg yesterday, which was cool. And there's just something about watching meat go from raw to that golden color, and then putting a little bit of char on it and things like that.
We're seeing you in a month's time.
Are we booked? Are we?
Yeah.
So.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I'm sure we are. I'm sure it's in the diary. I'm just running around like a headless chicken.
I've got a few muntjac haunches, a couple of roe haunches, and some fallow haunches in the freezer.
Nice.
So we'll provide the meat if you provide the cooking.
Yeah, obviously.
And let's do that. Let's do a
and
haunch.
That's what I get off on. That's the trade, isn't it? I'll happy. I'm not a chef or anything like that. Like, for God's sake, don't think I know what I'm doing. But I just enjoy trying, and if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. Mm-hmm. But I've got some wicked new gear coming from a company called Petromax, and some of their fire cooking stuff is just unreal. And I've got hopefully something coming that not many people would have seen before, but visually it should just look amazing.
I've been getting through your Instagram and just sort of seeing all this sort of stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be really cool. Like the fire pit you've got with the swing over grill.
Well, so
I've just got
literally tonight. It started raining. I was trying to do a live, so I've got. So for that fire pit, I think it. Have you ever heard of a cloche or I don't know how you say it. It's CLO.
The thing that covers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got one of those. So basically, I can turn that fire pit effectively into an oven on top.
Oh my God.
So is it just for those of us that don't know what cloche is? It's just a big lid.
It's imagine a fire pit. It sits on a plate. So you have a metal plate on the bottom, and then like a raised trellisy part to take it off that bottom, because otherwise it's just going to burn. And then basically a metal dome that goes on top, and once obviously that dome's on, it's just going to get hotter and hotter and hotter, and it should just become an oven. So I'm really interested to see what you can actually, and that's my passion is to see what you can do, because it's so easy to turn the oven on, isn't it? I get no enjoyment, I get nothing out of cooking inside. Absolutely nothing.
You're a complete convert.
So in your household, are you the cooker? Are you the cook if it's outdoors but not indoors?
Yeah, and then so if I get asked, what are we doing for dinner, and it's raining, I'm like, I don't care.
It's your department.
Sandwiches.
I'm not qualified.
So it's really interesting, and I've said this to Harry before, like, because each of us sell a little bit of venison ourselves, both direct customers but also pubs, butchers, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because in the winter, most of my customer base is female. Right. And most of them want mince, loins, or diced venison. And then basically probably about now in the year, the female customer base just dies and goes away. And all of a sudden you get the men come out and they're like, we want steaks, whole haunches, whole loins, just big slabs of meat. And you're like, right, barbecue season has started.
They don't have burgers.
Not really, no.
God, I got a hell of a demand for burgers.
Have you?
Yeah. Get your press going.
Yeah. I was going to say, venison really, well, you see it, I think you see it more often than not in sausages and burgers, really. Yeah. I think, and this is another thing that I want to kind of bridge, is that I want to, venison is such a sustainable meat, isn't it? But I think that there's a little bit of stigma around it, that it's for the rich, or it's almost unobtainable because it's not in the supermarkets. Quite often you'll see it in the butchers and things, like if you've got a decent one and stuff. But there's another stigma around about the gamey flavour, isn't it? Oh, it's a bit gamey, or
everyone's has something that's been really badly prepared or hung not enough or too long.
And so
it is quite sensitive to that sometimes. But I mean, I saw it on the supermarket shelf in Aldi the other day. They are catching on to it slowly but surely.
Massively.
You see a couple of good articles in newspapers and things, so there's I think it is moving.
There's a huge movement for people who just want something different as well. And so even when I did some stuff around sort of beef and things like that, you know, you go into a shop now, it's sirloin, ribeye, fillet, rump, isn't it? That's your 4 choices really. And there's so much more. There's so much more, and it's the same. You know, I think there's people who are fed up with lamb, chicken, beef. You know, that's not pork.
And to go back to what you were saying at the beginning as well, lamb, chicken, beef that has been through a sort of, and this other people's words, factory farmed through an abattoir, whereas they can come get venison that's been shot sort of free range, organically, ethically, sustainably, whatever you want to call it, out there, and there's just a sort of different connotation and image to it. And I think even your other half is a vegetarian apart from venison, isn't she?
She'll eat things that have been shot, if they're wild.
Yeah.
Because
that's interesting, because I've got a few followers like that, and I just couldn't believe that this vegetarian. I was like, well, you're not a vegetarian then if you're doing it. But they just truly believe that it should be shot and it should be instant, and I love that. I think that's fantastic, personally.
I agree. Yeah, I think it needs to be a movement. I think we need to start it.
I think we're lucky.
It's the hunter gatherer cook.
The UK is really, like, you know, generally the UK is really good. You know, we are really great foodies, aren't we? And you know, we've got good-ish regulation around things. And I like the fact that generally the people demand better, don't they?
Welfare standards are.
Unfortunately, you know, you do get the vegan activists and the extremists and things. They ruin it for everyone, unfortunately. And likewise, you get, you know, the farmers or whoever it is, and they let the industry down because of whatever it is that they're doing. So, you know, at both ends, they're both as bad as each other. But I think for the people in the middle who are, you know, trying to do a good job with everything and trying to provide amazing sort of food standards, those are the people that we need to support. Just do more for our local businesses and people and the animals, believe it or not. A lot, I'm sure you guys say this, but what I want is, again, I was talking to Pulsar, is I need Matt to take a safe shot, and safe means as instant death as possible. People don't get that. They think, well, why do you care about the safety of the deer if you're going to kill it? It's like, because I want it to die as quickly as possible so it doesn't suffer.
It's about respect, isn't it? Really?
Exactly. And that's what I've learned, and that's what I've sort of enjoyed from all of this. You know, in line with all the people that I've met. It is a really, really nice community. And generally, if you've got a question, people will answer it, and they don't. I've not been belittled or anything like that, apart from you guys. You know, it's just a really, really good community.
And that's just character building.
Exactly. You know, I'll deal with it. I'll go through enough therapy and I'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, you got a free pair of braces out of it, so.
Absolutely. I bought them.
Did you?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Mate, when I was up at the stalking show and I put them on, I became a new person.
Have you worn them since?
No. In fact, I've not been out with us for a stalk since.
Oh my God. We need to change that.
I know. I've just been absolutely flat out. So I'm off to Norwich next week to see. So I use a lot of Big K charcoal as a plug. And but I want to see how they make it. I've seen it made on a very, very small scale, and now I want to go see how the big boys are doing it. So that's Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, I'm being flown over to Jersey, which is just going to be absolutely epic. And so I use a lot of Jersey salt, and they basically said, "Do you want to see how we make our salt?" I was like, "Well, great, yeah," because it goes in everything that I'm doing. So luckily I know someone, and they're flying me over there on Wednesday morning.
How the other half live?
That's amazing.
Well, I still don't believe it will happen. When it happens, I'll believe it. But you know, to be able to tell that story of I got flown out, that's just going to be unreal. I'm going to film everything. I don't fly well, so I'm hoping it'll
be live
quite
for
interesting
24
watching.
hours.
Well, I'm going to text him after this and just say, are the old school rules, have you got to turn your phone off? Like, is that a thing? Because if I can live stream it, I will live stream it.
Surely salt isn't that? It's not like, state secrets or anything.
Well, I don't
Or
know.
maybe there's a secret
I meant
recipe.
flying over there, over the channel.
Oh, I see. I think you probably have to turn your phone off on the plane.
I don't know.
So.
Purdy's husband is a super international spy, by the way, and he's got a pilot's license.
Thank God no one watches or listens to this, otherwise you would have let that out.
Do you know what is really bad? is our first ever podcast. Is I named someone in that podcast. I can't remember if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
And when did we put that first podcast out? Like
about 6 months ago.
About 6 months ago. He's only just realised now and sent me a message saying, "Please, can you take my name off it?"
Really?
Yeah. So I mean that's how widely listened to our podcast is. So you'll get this. But what I'm saying is, Stuart will have another few months being an international spy before anyone realises.
Nice.
But the point of my story was he has got a plane and a pilot's license, and he's flown me once or twice, and he's never made me turn my phone off. And I've been there like a real loser, like videoing out the window.
I shall live stream everything then.
Yeah.
But the plan there is to go over there, meet some of the farmers who are going to sort of give some beef, see the salt process. Then we're going to jump on a boat and pull up some lobsters, and then hopefully they're going to drop me on one of the islands. I'm going to light a fire and do a little surf and turf.
That is going to be amazing.
Do you need a +1 for this trip?
I'd have a +50 if I could. I can't wait. I'm really lucky. Like, the people that I've met on this channel is just unreal.
So everyone needs to go and follow Hunter Gatherer Cooking. That's a
Thank
big
you very much.
HGC. I understand. Is
HGC.
And I see that you've set up some
knew
other
you'd say
affiliated Instagram accounts.
I haven't figured it all out yet. But yeah, so there's Hunter Gatherer Cooking, which is obviously the main thing. Then I wanted to tie in location and traveling, so I did Hunter Gatherer Sleeping, and that was about rural staycation. So I love shepherd's hut, glamping, little hobbit houses, yurts, all that sort of thing. So I wanted to do that, and the idea was to find these places and do the cooking and things like that.
Yeah.
And then I set up an apparel page. That hasn't really established itself yet, but one day it'll have a purpose, I feel sure.
It just needs a couple of risque photos of you with your braces, and it will take off.
Sell themselves. How kilo we sold out of braces.
So I've got that one. Then I've got a garden one, just purely because, like, all right, it's boring, but I do enjoy a bit of greenery, and I take pride in my garden, so I've got a little bit of that going on. I think that sort of helps as well. Like, anyone who says, "Oh, you're a meat page," and I was like, well, I'm not a meat page because I'm just covering lots of different things.
Yeah.
And then the last one is the drinks page, purely because if you're gonna eat, you may as well drink, right?
And what would be better than free tours to breweries every weekend?
Well, that would be good, wouldn't it?
Spanish vineyards.
Yeah.
Well, never mind. Well, Spanish vineyard would be nice. I've been spending a lot of time in the vineyard up here at the moment, and just cooking in a vineyard. Even just saying it sounds nice, but like doing it is just beautiful.
They're special places, aren't they?
They really are.
And they're budding as well at this time of year.
Yeah, and literally where we're at the moment. So I'm doing a series with them, like Life in the Vineyard, where I'm just going to track them for 12 months with all the different stages.
You
just
could have tied that in there and said you're going to stalk them for 12 months.
Well, yeah. Deer don't like grapes. Apparently, I learned this the other day.
Oh, really?
They don't touch them.
But they go for the bark, though, I believe.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. So at the back, there's a big deer fence, and if they got in, I believe that.
I wondered what you were going to say there when you're like, at the back, there's this big deer pile where all the dead bodies are, or something like that. When you're like,
they stack them up.
Yeah.
As a warning.
No. Yeah, it's just really interesting, and you find I now find myself, where possible and safe, like when you're driving, you're looking out the windows to see if there is one in the field and things like that.
Yeah.
Just a bit of an eye opener.
My car so many times trying to find look at deer.
Do you know the worst place is a bloody M4? So there's the stretch of the M4 between High Wycombe and like Hungerford is average speed check 50 mile an hour. And if you are going westbound at the right time in the morning, there are bloody hundreds of deer out on the left-hand side.
Oh, no.
I have almost killed myself about 17 times.
Unbelievable.
Because I've just been in the slow lane, like, oh, road deer, and almost like gone off the road into the hard shoulder.
Pull over with the binoculars.
Yeah.
Have a good look. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Very, very
It's it's just all good fun, isn't it? And like, you know, getting out and about in the fresh air and you know, not looking at your phone, he says, as I'm always using it, recording and stuff. But you know, just getting out, it's just so nice, isn't it?
What would you recommend, sort of, you know, for like your standard deer stalker, if he wants to go and do some al fresco, you know, go and shoot a deer, take out the sort of tenderloins or something, cook them on some sort of outdoor bit of kit, you know, what sort of thing do you need? What kind of, like, what sort of kit do you need to do that? Because we love talking about kit.
Yeah.
Like, we're kit obsessed. So tell us about some kit.
So the irony of all this is I'm actually enjoying using less kit. And people ask me like quite a bit, oh, what's the best barbecue? What's the best bit of kit? And I say to them, like, you know, different people's budgets are different, aren't they? Yeah. And the main thing is you can literally light a fire on the ground, and you can still achieve some phenomenal results. So, you know, what's best for me doesn't mean what's best for someone else. And, you know, price ranges are, you know, they can go up. You know, the barrel commander that I've got, you know, 2,500 plus. But in terms of kit, if you're sort of outdoors and things like that, so really, really early on the channel, my day job, I'm in recruitment as a director, and that comes with its own stresses and things like that. And part of what I was doing was I was going out into these remote locations, just anywhere I could find a little bit of a decent backdrop and not get caught. I would take a tiny little, it's called a Firebox. It's about that big. Or you can't see if it's a podcast, can you? About the height of your hand. And, you know, you would put a handful of charcoal in there, and you could just about rest something on top. And I would just go out and I would take whatever it is that I had, bit of venison, bit of steak, something like that. And I just cook some breakfast. I'd get up 5-6 o'clock in the morning, just go out, cook, and then come back. But you don't need to spend loads of money. And of course, the more kit you take with you, like the heavier it can be. So this little Firebox folds down into nothing. I used to sort of fill it with charcoal with the firelighter literally all ready to go. So I'd pull it out of a bag, put it on the floor, light it. 10 minutes later, you're sort of cooking and things like that. I personally think, like with a lot of meat, I like to let the meat do the talking. Rubs and things like that, they're all great, but sometimes I just want to know, is this meat good? Or, you know, or it's not good, but is it good or is it great? Yeah. And sometimes just a little bit of seasoning, butter, obviously that's a pretty key thing, isn't it? Sometimes I just like to let the meat do the talking, and just have it as it is with a little bit of something on there. But then, you know, I've put some lovely rubs on venison, some like, you know, the traditional, the non-traditional rubs. I use one at the moment, and they're trying to get salts and sugars out of the rubs, because the big, you know, the American thing is, you know, get the salt in there, get the sugar in there, and these guys are sort of saying, no, we can put things like dried dates in the rubs. That will give you the sweetness that you're looking for, but it won't be like adding sugar. So they do some cool stuff. But
I silver side you did a nice quite nice looking rub on that. Yeah,
that was just a barbecue one. But as I said, for me, hanging it up is the thing. So the tripod that I use from Petromax, where you just hang, they call it a fire bowl. That's pretty cool. Just sort of using that, and it's nice as well because when it's hanging up, you can just chill out a little bit more. And just let it do its thing. Grilling's fine, but obviously you got to do it, you got to watch it, monitor it, then you eat it and it's done. But if you're hanging something up, you get quite a bit of downtime, which is nice.
I'm very excited to give it a try when you come.
Well, yeah,
we've never done it before.
No,
never.
I can't believe you haven't. You know, for the amount of exposure that you obviously have available to you. you know, I'm
Okay.
jealous of you guys.
That would be amazing. Because there's so many times where we've gone out and shot a deer, and you just kind of sit there and you just kind of enjoy, just being in nature.
Yeah.
You've got all that time where you could sort of be like, well, let's just settle in and have a steak or something.
Yeah.
Because you get those lovely. You've done tenderloins, I'm assuming, before.
Yeah.
Like the sort of stalker's breakfast. Like you've got those. They're there. They're part of the gralic almost. You've got the liver as well.
So because I've never had it fresh.
Oh really?
And actually, I said to Matt, that's something that I'd like to do is take some hung meat out with us, use the same type, whatever it is we're going to do, and I'd love to be able to taste the actual difference. He reckons it'll be a lot tougher. Is that right?
I mean, it depends. Again, it depends on the cut. I think if you had exactly the same cut, if you had a haunch that's literally just been shot and a haunch that's been hung for 10, 20 days, then yeah, absolutely, there's going to be a difference. But when you're doing like a tenderloin, which is basically the inside fillets, they're the tenderest thing there is.
Yeah.
So they'd be
that's something I'd love to do, just to sort of see what that's about. And again, I wouldn't want any rubs on there, just bit of seasoning, just to see what the differences are. So there's loads of from a food perspective, the deer stalking opens up so many options to me.
Yeah.
But we'll do it. We'll have fun. It'll be good.
Yeah. Can't wait. I'm actually really excited.
I was going to say I'm really excited now, and I think on that note, before my mouth starts salivating anymore, we will call it a day.
Do you think there's anyone still listening?
Yeah,
100%. If there is, well done and fair play.
Well done, fair play, and our secret stash of gold is hidden at.
And if you haven't subscribed to Hunter Gatherer Cooking yet, then
and your channel, you need to plug that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 150 something subscribers now on YouTube. We're getting there.
It's so hard, isn't it? YouTube. It's so hard. Like anyone who even just gives it a go, I think fair play to you.
Do you know what the most depressing thing is YouTube occasionally sends you a message and it's like, you're doing really well. 25% of the people who listen to your channel subscribe, which what that means is the other 75% are like, they're either listening to it and go, nah, this is pretty rubbish, I'm never going to listen to that again. Or they're like, yeah, it's all right, I'll listen again, but can't be bothered to subscribe. And you're like...
Flip that on its head. Think of it like this. 75% of people found you. All right, they didn't subscribe, but you can't win them all. But they found you. So whatever words you used, at least you got found.
Yeah, true.
It's all about mine. It's all about approach.
Yeah.
So, and end of the day, like the advice that I always give people, because they're always like, oh, what should I do? How do you do it? Just enjoy what you're doing. Never, ever focus on numbers. And you shouldn't ever do something for numbers and things. Just enjoy what you're doing. End of the day, this is my hobby. And I love that people want to get involved with it. But I say to people, the food that you see me eat, that's breakfast or lunch or dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to eat that regardless.
Not the show.
Well, obviously sometimes it is, but end of the day, like
wearing suspenders or not,
it's
if there's any skin involved, then
it's all got to be eaten, hasn't it? So
yeah. What does your other half think of the suspenders?
Well, she hasn't seen them on as such yet.
Is that tonight's treat?
That.
Well, it could be, couldn't it?
Yeah,
it could be, but I might save them, for a
special occasion.
Yeah,
a deer store.
Valentine's Day.
Very different mindset.
So there we go, folks. Before this gets any more raunchy, we will love you all and leave you. But thank you very much to Alex for joining us. As usual, your hosts have been Harry and Tom. Thank you very much, everyone listening. Please give us a like, comment, subscribe, whatever it is, and we'll hopefully catch you on the next one. Thank you very much.
See you soon.
Do you now edit the end, or is this over? Do we say goodbye?
Well, if you are still watching, thank you. I really appreciate that. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Any questions, let me know, but please hit that subscribe button.